Welcome to the Water People podcast, where we talk story with some of the most adept waterfolk on the planet. I'm your host, Lauren Hill, joined by my partner, Dave Rastovich. Water People is a place to acknowledge and share the aquatic experiences that shape who we become back on land. This season is supported by Patagonia, whose purpose-driven mission is to use business to save our home planet. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the Bundjalung Nation, the traditional custodians of the land and waters where we work and play, who have cared for this sea country for tens of thousands of years. Respect and gratitude to all First Nations people, including elders past, present, and emerging. Today we're in conversation with two-time world champ Tom Carroll, known for his power, both on land and in the water. Tom excelled competitively on the World Championship Tour for 14 years, finishing in the top 5 9 times, winning 26 events, and earning surfing's first $1 million sponsorship contract. As a 3-time Pipe Masters champ, Tom is often considered the performance bridge between Jerry Lopez and Kelly Slater. Today, Tom is recognized as a powerful teacher of meditation and wellness. He spoke with us candidly about his sobriety and the absurd list of injuries he has endured as an elite athlete. We find Tom so inspiring, not only because of his surfing accolades, but because of his willingness to share his story and struggles so vulnerably, with a commitment to keep surfing no matter what and aging well, inside and out. Dave has been running around like a schoolboy the last few days, knowing that you're coming, just like spewing out factoids about different experiences that he's witnessed of yours and just like gushing about his love for you and just vibrating with like, oh my God, I can't believe Tom's going. And there aren't so many people that he feels that way about. So Davey, can you please do the intro?
That's true. It's very true. I think most of my expressions the last few days have started with, you don't understand. You don't understand, Lauren. And she's looking at me like, here we go. Here comes another. I'm like, oh. And,
it's a love bubble.
Yeah. So I guess for me, I'd start with being a 12-year-old on the Gold Coast and being taken to a cinema by one of my older sisters to go see on the big screen All Down the Line. And going into the theatre, just raucous, filled with all of the surfers that I would see in the lineups at Burleigh and the Goldie and Stratty and stuff, all in this tiny little packed house, just raucous. You could barely hear the soundtrack because everyone was hooting and hollering, and I was just in there like, wow, what am I a part of here? What am I? Is this my scene? Is this what I'm going to be a part of? And then the surfing, just what burned into my brain was your surfing and Ganga Jang's music and the big sound. I was really into music as a kid, and it was just incredible. And then, a few years later, I started to grow into that surfing community, partaking in contests and being in the lineup at Burleigh a lot. And of course, that was at the time where, you're in the center of the surfing circle at the height of your powers in that particular way. And so I was also then just like, wow, imagine getting to see Tommy surf in flesh one day. Everyone passes through Burleigh sooner or later. I bet you I'll see him one day. And then I recall seeing you come through Burleigh, and though you were very much a part of the high-performance pointy-nose thruster surfboard world, you were riding different shapes and you had different fins. And I was a kid then, so when I was 14 at Burleigh, I was surfing those sort of surfboards, but also I was more passionately surfing Dick Van Stralen surfboards, which were anything but pointy nose thrusters.
This all time.
And loving it, but I would get ridiculed, and I got strung up on the point to the pine trees naked with my leggy my board thrown on the shed, that shed there at the point, and, ridiculed older boys saying, you're going to throw away your surfing life right in this stupid shit, and like really hassled for it. But then I saw you and you were doing that, but you were a part of that world too. Yeah. And I never got to speak to you or anything. I was just probably cowering in the pandanus trees like, oh my God, there he goes, look at that. Oh. But it was just so inspiring for me to feel that you could dance in those worlds. and at the same time. And so that was really big for me because, even though I laugh about it, it was hard for me at that stage to have my true passion and interest in creativity through surfing be just ripped apart by everyone, but still dance that line, play the game with modern shortboards and stuff. Then I heard you speak at something. It might have been the Noosa Surf Festival or somewhere, and you actually used words. You weren't just grunting and laughing like a stoner that we all grew up seeing in movies or on shows like Jeff Spicoli style stuff, where surfers are generally got, a tiny vocabulary. And here you were actually expressing thoughts and concepts that were coherent. And I was like, wow, that's fucking awesome.
Wow.
As a kid.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, really, really cool. And then you also had the surf life-saving thread going on. I also had that as a kid. And then I remember seeing a picture of you with Prime Minister Bob Hawke, and you were both laughing, looking like you're having a good laugh, walking in a shore break, I think
Absolutely.
it was.
That's the way he was, yeah.
And I was like, wow. And this guy gives a shit about the world he inhabits. That's what I thought as a kid, looking at that picture. I'm like, wow, you're willing to participate in the turbulent world of politics where you're going to piss someone off if you have a perspective.
Suck down the...
Yeah, but you were willing and interested. And so all those things, Tommy, for me were just really impactful and really, I guess, comforting at a time where, we're teenage boys, we're struggling to find our way. There's not really any healthy rites of passage for us to go through to become a man,
Not in Australia.
Pretty nasty. And so a lot of us get really lost, you end up down some pretty dark back alleys. And so, I just wanted to say all of that and say thank you for you just being you at those times. But it was something that really helped me and bolstered me at that period in time. And that's why these few days I've been saying to Lauren, you don't understand this.
It's really heartwarming, It's really heartwarming hearing that. Because I don't get to hear that sort of stuff very often. So it's just really nice coming from you, Dave.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Well, that's
I get stuff, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. It's just lovely to hear that at this moment. Yeah.
Great. And there was many more of those things, but I'll leave them for the next few pages in my book.
Bubble up, I know.
But I'll hand over to Lauren now because we have a certain way we usually begin these conversations.
We always begin, Tom, by asking about a time or experience after which you were never the same. Would you be willing to share a story like that with us today?
Yeah. Wow. There's so many.
I can imagine.
Definitely a big mark for me was when I got clean from using drugs to coming clean, and then because it sort of opened up an authentic part of me to reveal it to the world. So there's a sort of pre-Tom and post at the moment, so I don't know what's coming up in the next 10 minutes, but... But at 15 minutes or whatever it is, next minute, I don't know, but it is regarding that. So there's definitely a big shift from that point. So that was a big moment.
What led to that moment?
Well, a whole bunch of life, Things happen in our time in our life. We don't really have any power over it. It's sort of just things happen really, really young. We all have these things that happen. We like to call it trauma to some degree. It's true, it's trauma, but it's just how I kind of took it on board at the time, and I didn't have any language around it, but I lost my mum when I was 7. So when that happened, and she actually gave me my first surfboard. And a couple of months later, she wasn't on the planet, but I was only just turned 7. So, you're 6 years old watching that happen. You don't even know what's going on. Just didn't have the hardware on board yet. And so, you think about getting a surfboard from her. It's kind of like such a powerful gift, like from my mother image straight through. And I've been still riding a surfboard today. It still holds me.
I recently lost my dad, which is not at all the same as losing a parent when you're a child. That's just, as a parent, kind of the worst thing you can imagine is leaving your child or children behind. But he also afforded me some of my formative water experiences. It just made me wonder, is adulthood just grabbing the threads that were laid for us as children? Are we just grabbing onto the things that were familiar then and continuing down those pathways?
Yeah, and kind of doing the best we can with what's put in front of us, particularly our children. And the funny thing is, I think there's a cosmic laugh kind of, you're going to have 3 daughters. Figure it out. you know? And so the ocean's been that for me, you know, like it's beyond all the stuff that I've been exposed to.
Was there a mother figure that came in human form throughout your childhood and teenage years that
Yes.
fulfilled that role to a degree?
Yeah, so my grandmother, close to my grandmother, she came over from the UK because my mum was from Britain, and she came over and took care of us, and, you know, she's a pretty staunch lady. She'd been through a lot. She was a nurse in 2 world wars, you know, like so
Wow.
she, you know, in London, in the underground, all that sort of stuff. She was, and so she came over and took care of us, and also my sister. We had our sister, Josephine, until, well, I was 26 and Nick was 28. So she passed away in a car accident. So that was like instant. Like, whoa. But she was a powerful influence.
I've been thinking about your mom. I watched this 60 Minutes piece with you and your brother.
Oh, yeah.
And your brother spoke about discovering your mom's medical records and learning that she too may have struggled with addiction. And I thought, what a perfectly imperfect picture of what parenting is. You hand over both the keys to delight in a surfboard and this underlying current of addiction and having that be a hereditary possibility.
Well, yeah. And I don't know what's in the ether around that, but definitely there's some information passed on that I can't grab a hold of and go, oh, yeah, I'll put my finger on that, that's for sure. But there's definitely a correlation there where both the substances were sort of moved towards that sort of fit the underlying pain that was underlying emotional pain was the same kind of thing. Was something that kind of lifted us above the line. That sort of made us felt like we could cope. So there was some sort of strategy in that. But it's and that was Nick's research. You know, pretty awesome. Yeah. Like I've got a brother like that.
Did that unlock something for you?
Oh yeah.
You spoke about addiction being a disease of the spirit. Did that help unlock something for your spirit to sort of step above the physicality of addiction?
Well, what it does, it just sort of helps us see, you know, first of all, you know, addiction can create so much shame and guilt. So, you know, there's so much, it loads up and loads up and loads up and it loads up on a daily basis. It's not just keeps piling up. And so until you can really see it for what it is, that just keeps doing its thing and the psyche gets really shaken up. I talked about it being a disease of a spirit. I kind of shifted a bit now from that as the disease of the human. Spirit's always there. So I choose my words differently now through experience and also, you know, watching what goes on out there and within myself. And I think having that information about our family history and also our surroundings and knowing that there's actually, you know, seeing examples of healing was very, very powerful in that. And there's this incredible work you can do called family constellation work. It's amazing work. You need a very good facilitator, but it's the essence of the family energy. It's energy still sitting in the ether, very powerful in understanding what's gone on in the past so you can actually get to see it. You can actually go back to your great-great-great-parents, grandparents and see someone in a great deal of pain or whatever's going on with them. But it's pretty amazing. I went through a bit of that work and gave me a lot of knowledge to sort of base, you know, my kind of today's reality on. I like the representation of love and the grander representation of love sort of pouring through things. And sometimes that sort of, we don't want to see it almost. We're going to go on the other path that looks a bit easier and quicker. We'll go for that one. I get quick relief there or I do this and kind of we miss the point of what's going on underneath it, you know?
That sounds to me too, and I think a lot of surfers are guilty of this. I think of surfing when you say that and how many missed opportunities there are for us to be where we are, paying full attention in a loving way when it comes to surfing, and that the layers that are heaped upon the surfing culture and experience can really inhibit the magic that is there, the opportunity that is there when we really are there. And it makes me think of just the culture you were born into and I was born into here in Australia in the, you know, a few decades later in the 90s. That's when I was growing into it. You were in the 70s growing into it. And just the framework that was there was like a purely escapist framework, it seemed, that if you had shit going on in your home, you went to the beach, go surfing. That'll sort your head out, mate. Just get out in the water, you know. but it wasn't really sorting it out. It would help you cope, but it wasn't really facing it. It was quite an escape. And then you think about the troubling times of puberty and teenage years and the whole puberty blues sort of era. And you think about then a coping mechanism for the world was just getting shit-faced or super duper stoned, and therefore having time out of mind, escaping again. And the language or lack of was indicative too of that period. So that was like a thing that we were growing out of as young men, and that's pretty toxic space. And I think of what you're just talking about and where you were based in Sydney as a young fella. And so we know all of that. Were there any shining lights for you in that period of time as a young man growing into the surfing culture? Were there people that you saw who shine a light in a way that was contradictory to all of those norms?
Yeah, definitely. In the earlier days, like Derek Hind.
Yeah.
You know, Derek was quite a strong influence. He was he was hyper competitive.
Yeah.
Like, I'll get dragged into competition. I don't think I'm 24/7 competitive guy. My brother is, however. He's very competitive. So to compete, I had to deal with my brother, who's also an intellect. I had to kind of deal with this. My sister was very smart. My dad was really intellectual. I was like sitting on the end of the table, you know, and they were all shining lights, but I was like, getting a voice in there was tricky.
Yeah.
But observation-wise, I've become very much a shy observer in my earlier years, and watching the talent in the town. And Derek wasn't one of those ones that went the way that a lot of the crew did. There was a crew that we used to call the Grots at Newport, and they were just like, you know, the Grots. They kind of like went that way, you know, and we just didn't make any sense to be sort of nodding off in the middle of the street and, you know, and throwing up and doing all that sort of stuff that was brought about by heroin, particularly at that period in the 70s, was rife around our area. But it kind of had a weird sort of attraction to the ones that rode motorbikes and did wheelies along the car park, like the whole way. I used to go, yeah, you know, because I had that in me, you know. Like, but I was like, and I go, but how come the next minute they're like nodding up? You know, like I didn't, and now good surfers, but then they stopped surfing. So I'm going, well, that's not the way to go. You know, I knew that one of them particularly was a really good surfer, ended up dying in a bike accident, and another one become quadriplegic. So I thought, well, maybe bikes aren't such a good idea because they just, talking about like role models. And I used to, you know, Michael Peterson was our kind of man. Like he was a god to us. Whatever my MP was doing, we were doing. And so he used to come and stay. The owner of the local surf shop, Charlie Ryan, Ocean Shore Surf Shop, sort of opened up when I was like 11 on the corner back street at Newport, and I couldn't believe it. We just turned out to be the hang spot. And when the Coca-Cola Tourism Surfer Bout was on, MP had come and stay with him. And oh my God, it was on, you know, like it was like on. I just go, oh, really? Is this what you do? Like I just,
wow,
like sort of witnessed quite a bit of stuff then as a 12-year-old.
Wow.
13-year-old, like stuff that you kind of go, wow. I guess that's kind of really. And then anyway, a lot of stuff which kind of didn't quite sort of fit, but I was drawn to in that way.
Such a tricky period then too, and I think I came in where there was still very much that nature to things happening. 95, 96, I started being a little travelling grom, going to France and seeing everyone at the Rock Food just sideways, you
upside
know,
down. Yeah, what's going on?
You know what that rolling, just
and the crew
running amok, you know, and then people just go out and surf a heat, you know,
next day
straight from the Rock Food and stuff, and you know, wild times. And to me, it felt like there wasn't really any other option. If you were of a different nature, you're pretty ostracized around that time, and or like ostracized or sort of shunned as an introvert or you know, a puff or a hippie or all those. Just it was just like the language is just so indicative. It was just so black and white and just my way or the highway sort of stuff.
And that's so the polarized perspective that our whole culture ended up being built on. Like, I feel like we're still in the hangover of dreaming up an alternate reality to tense masculinity.
But
it's moving pretty quick now. Though,
Yeah.
which is so awesome. Like,
Great. That's
what
where
I
we
love.
wanted to go with you and ask you about your perspective on
Yeah,
that.
no, I find in comparison, the openness with which people are taking surfing today from what you can actually sort of, it's, you know, still got the grip of a bit of that, what you're talking about, Lauren, for sure, because still it's because it's moving at such a pace. People aren't used to having change move at such a pace. And actually constantly introducing something new. But what I'm witnessing today brings so much joy to, you know, on all levels. Like, you can surf anything, like you can have all these different styles of approach. And Dave's talking about a time when, if I go at Newport, my local town, if you went out on a longboard, you're out.
It can be hard, I think, for younger surfers to imagine how severe the repercussions were for venturing outside of what was normal and right.
Physical. It got physical. It didn't make sense to me. I was going, I didn't mind what you wrote. I was like, and I was going, and it didn't really make, a lot of stuff didn't make sense to me. In fact, I don't mind riding waves together. That's got me into a lot of trouble over the time. And I thought actually got a lot of joy out of it. I ended up just, you know, Sunset Beach was a great go behind wave, by the way. Like, where you can S turn around each other, and we use that wave. I use that with Ross Clark Jones particularly. We did a lot of ride together a lot out there, and that's
what surfing was before it was Californian. It was together.
That's what
together.
I love those shots. Those shots. When I used to look at the pictorial history of surfing, Hamlet, it was like a pictorial history of surfing. I used to it was like a Bible. I used to have it beside my bed. I used to just pour over the pictures. I never used to read much as a kid. Nick was the reader. He'd read because, you know, as a brothers, you do opposite to what your brother does.
Yeah,
I think it's got something to do with nature just pulling things as far apart as possible so they get diversity. So I'm like doing opposite to what Nick's doing. He's reading heaps of books and I'm just going, I'm outside of a tree. So, but when it came to looking at books, I was fascinated, but I'd go to the pictures, being highly visual, and look at those photos with everyone riding the wave. And I used to go, they're all having fun.
Yeah.
They're all having fun. And that's what I'm all about, having fun. So I always got myself into trouble down the track for going, well, hang on a sec, guys. There's plenty of room here. We can actually break this down. You can break it up. Like, let's have a bit of fun on this wave together. And when you do, it actually is such a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's the best.
And, you're kind of like, whoa. One moment confirmed this to me, that we've kind of been on the wrong track, was with competition and all that sort of stuff, because it always sort of ground me at some level. That Kelly Slater and Quicksilver got together, and the ASP at the time got together and had this event called the Kelly Slater Invitational off Tavarua in Fiji. And it was for him to, because he was the top dog, he could sort of do anything. He was in that power zone where he could just play with anything. And he'd go, hey, let's just do a whole bunch of different competition formats and see what comes up. And I'm going, you got to do one with two people a wave. You know, he goes, we'll call it the sharing format, shall we? And I go, yeah, call it the sharing format. And then so he's the first wave, I'll never forget, it was a cloud break, right? We've been surfing and everyone's getting waves at cloud break, and they're going to call the contests on, and it's the sharing format. There's a few other formats going down, but this one was always really focused on. And I was teamed up with Tom Curran to ride a wave together. So you're teamed up with the person and you ride together on the wave to make a score, right? Tom was really scared of me on the wave, by the way. He's, you know, here he is. He's going, I'm going to wave with Tom. I'm going to get a board up the bum or something. And so he was a bit sheepish of riding away with me. But I remember the competition being cleared out. The cloud break was about 4 to 6 feet. It was nice, little bit of cloud break. It wasn't great, but it was plenty of waves. And I don't know who else was in the first heat, but the first wave was ridden as a team by Corey Lopez and Andy Irons.
Oh, great.
And so I'm like...
Great friends.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm getting dragged down the end of the lineup and they're trying to call us out of there. Me and Kelly actually getting sucked down the end in that little bit of current at the end of cloud break. And I'll never forget this first wave. The hooter went, and they were on the first wave together. Like, boom. Andy and Corey, right? Goofy and natural, like facing each other, just going ham. Like, one's going vertical, the other's doing a bottom turn. They're just going whack, 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 and they're doing floaters and crazy stuff, right? I'm just like going, oh my
It's happening.
God, it's happening. This is the best thing ever. And then they kick out right near us. And I'm like, we're just hooting and carrying on. Kelly's hooting. I'm going, yeah, they can't hear us. Their first thing is to come off the back of the wave, look at each other, and then they start talking about what they're going to do on the next one, like immediately.
Yeah.
So the dance was profound.
A duet.
And oh my God, I was like, this is the best thing ever. It hasn't happened since. Like, I've gone, this is the stuff.
That is such a great idea.
And later down the track, they had like all these C grade, B grade, what I know, celebrities and all that stuff there. And they're doing other celebrity stuff and surfing with this people and that people and putting it all together as a package for MTV, which was still going. And then they did a show on MTV with it, the Kelly Slater Invitation. It was a bit of a deal. And then they got the viewers' feedback on it, right, on what was going on in the surfing. The number one thing that they loved was the share format. It hasn't been heard since.
I think you should package it for the Olympics. I think double surfing should be
doubles.
in it.
Imagine like you think about Sierra Kerr and like Jackson Dorian. Dorian. You know these surfers surfing together on a wave.
Wow.
Mixed doubles, stuff like that.
Oh wow, that's
Really
fantastic.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
isn't it?
So this is open. Like today, I can feel this is a possibility. Whereas I don't think the sharing idea that because of the experience of surfing, it's funny. I always found it funny that we get so pissed off because someone else is on the wave. Like I get this, why is that guy on the inside? Man, I used to get that. This feeling in my body, like I've got to get on the inside and I've got to work this situation. And I used to do it really well, and I used to be very assertive and take off as late as, get in the zone and fight it out. I go, this is like weird energy. I get it. I'd feel pretty crap about it, and watch people get violent and around the world. Like I'd see a wave of it go around the world where I go surfing, and then all of a sudden these cultures that had just started surfing had been infected by one element of that, and all of a sudden it becomes a highly protected zone and violent. And so I go, wow, this isn't surfing to me. And so kind of like missed the point. And so, you see this wave just sort of go through, someone gets really angry, it goes off and just disappears, and someone's left with a whole bunch of violent anger. And it's sort of, I don't know, sort of taking us off on a funny angle here, but it's missing the point of the love that's sort of what is there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you would know. You're the king of this world, king of surfing world, being, two-time world champ. I was so curious to ask you, for you, was reaching the pinnacle of your surfing career, did it make you feel satiated or did it make you hungry for more? Was it satisfying?
Yeah, it was. It was satisfying for a little while. Like it gave me that kind of posture in myself. Like, well, I've done a lot of work and it's kind of worked. That sort of is very satisfying. And also it helped me really get good at what I was doing. Really helped me get some mastery going. Say that like loosely, but it's like it gave me that gave me joy. And then I'd have to go back to square one, like. And go, okay, here comes another year. And I was motivated to get 2 in a row because MR had just gone 4. I've gone, oh my God, I'm nothing if I get just 1. I better pull my socks up on this one and kind of recreate things a bit. And that was a big year of kind of learning and recreation. I can't imagine doing it 11 times, Kelly. Like the energy that goes into actually recreating just to get another one back to back. It's a lot of energy. And by the time I'd done that, I got another feeling and posture about confidence. I say posture, it's a posture of confidence. It's sort of kind of layered in your system. You kind of walk around differently. You can share your experience, and I felt stronger in myself. And
validated.
And
Yeah,
I went
seen,
in.
acknowledged.
Yeah, and in my world, and I was just about competition at the time, even though surfing always meant a lot more to me than that. But it was really taking me to places. And then the next year I came in and I won the first 2 events in the year and I felt really strong. I'd won it in Japan and a wave pool of all things. And I'm like going, oh my God, if I can win in a 1 foot wave pool, I can do okay here, you know.
Which was probably just after, if it was one of the first events, Pipe would have been one of the last events you would have been in. So that's pretty full spectrum there, wave pool to.
Yeah, it was actually the tour ended actually back then at the end at Bells. So it finished, Bells or the event in Sydney, which would be the Coast.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so that back then, so it sort of overlap. So Hawaii was just a segment of the part of the tour pre the end. You have a bit of a gap before the end. Events. But
Gotcha.
then the first events in the tour was Japan, and then they threw this random wave pool in their Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Oh, so that's tragic.
Wow.
I've been there. My family's from there.
Yeah, we were driving
Be
around
careful what you
Allentown,
say about Pennsylvania.
Wow.
It was so wacko. I was like, what are we doing in Pennsylvania? You know, like, it's like really out there. And I was like, we were surfing a wave pool. This crowd watching us surfing, and they didn't know what they were looking at. They were just eating ice cream and watching, you know, off the side of the pool. And
probably lots of those people had never been in the ocean before.
Yeah. So they were happy to have something moving around in the water the way the waves were. And you could see people when they ran the sort of like ocean waves, they replicated the Jersey Shore. So the Jersey Shore has those onshore like 3-second period. There's a 3-second period, and we get 15 waves shot out at us. And I found out through studying it, because I was so determined to win, on the 11th wave, that was the wave that actually had the most power, because you get a surge of current coming back at it. And
but it's a risk, though. What if you miss that 11th wave?
You don't want to miss that 11th wave.
Oh, that is hilarious.
But Derek Ho was in the final with me.
Wow.
And Derek Ho, can you imagine? And so, like, Pipe, we were like, just like the last two people you think are in the final, but we got there together, and he's a nasty competitor. And I'm like, but he didn't know about the 11th wave. He didn't click onto the 11th wave.
Wow.
But that was, it came off the back of those two wins, and then I came back home to train, and I had a sin tendinosis where, you know about that, where the two tib and fib meet the ankle. There's a ligament that wraps around the bottom of the ankle, got really thick and strong. I tore that down the middle, and they didn't know much about that back then. Felt like I broke my leg just doing a floater.
Oh, wow.
Big old floater, and landed in the flat against a little backwash on a shallow sandbar. Just went crack. Oh, my God, I busted my leg. But it took me out completely for the year.
Wow.
So the kind of third one kind of...
Yeah. What age were you then?
23.
Oh, wow.
20, come on, 20, 20, actually, maybe 24. Maybe 24, yeah.
What role did substances play in helping you cope with the come down, right? So with surfing in general, for even lay people, we know the peaks that we get when we're surfing. It's the highs of life.
Yeah.
So incredible, much less surfing the tallest waves on the planet, winning the world titles, like those highs, so difficult to compete with in a mundane terrestrial life. Like, what role did substances play in easing those curves?
Down as I got more and more kind of pressure to win within myself, not externally, the more I kind of took it on, the more I'd sort of try to recreate my, the winning, and then I'd maybe get to it, and the work that it took to get to it, and then I'd sort of get something and then celebrate, right? That sort of backside, when I feel the sensation, because it was just all fun at first, right?
Yeah.
And someone offers you something, and you kind of, that feels good. Especially the stuff that I liked originally, which was cocaine. That's like the ego drug, like triple up your ego, like get kaboom. And so I kind of started to feel that in the kind of later 80s, and I was exposed to more as that kind of went on. And I kind of started sort of seeking it when life started to get real when I came off the back of the tour, and I sought that kind of high, and then children came and the everything came at me thick and fast. So I kind of felt like, where do I fit into this? Where does that part of me fit? Doesn't fit. I'm like, God, I got to do something to kind of to insatiate that.
Yeah.
So, and that's substances come in pretty handy, I guess, at that point. But it creates strong dysfunction too. So it's a kind of I'm playing hide and seek with myself in a way. Yeah, that kind of like it's an escapist sort of thing that we were talking about before, Dave. Is to kind of and not give myself room to recognise myself. Yeah, kind of not being able to, not feeling like I couldn't give myself room or even be authentic at that point. And if I tried, it'd be it was not really heard, maybe, even both with myself or others around me.
I heard you speak about parenting at that time. You ultimately had 3 daughters. And I was just thinking about something you said about being there but not there, as a dad playing with the kids but not being there so much. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, with phones, with jobs, with being distracted all the time. I think it's a common experience in parenthood now and the pressures that we all feel.
Yeah.
But I was just curious about how that was for you, juggling parenthood while managing addiction and being on ice while you're like looking after babies. Like, what does that look like? That's complex.
That's super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's super uncomfortable. It's like it's hard for me to describe in words other than saying it's very uncomfortable and it loads up with other emotional deficits, really. I call them like shame, guilt and stuff like that, which loads up on the system. But there was times where it actually helped, because I needed the energy and it worked for a little while. The thing is with any kind of drug or anything like that where you're scratching the itch, it works for a little while and then you kind of need more and then the whole cycle of it has to send you into that spot to sort of meet that thing that you really need to meet.
Yeah.
And I think, with the first 2, Grace and Jenna, they're like 29 and 31 now. They're pretty amazing girls, women. They're proper. And it was a wild time. And we're having a good time, really. But I wasn't as that pro surfer guy still in my head, still sort of feeling who I am out in the world, having feeling like obligated to be this or that, that I kind of lost my authenticity, and the idea of sort of disappearing and escaping was very alluring. So being with someone, even if I didn't have drugs, was still tricky no matter what. So when it became a daily thing, like it was more like after we had our 3rd child, Grace, that was back in around about 2002, and that was really like having a baseball bat over the head, like boom, like wake up kind of thing. And she was like that, Dad. Bam. So it was like that. So she was loud and tough, but another gift, an incredible gift, like she, it did look like a whole pile of shit at the time, to be honest, but the gift was right in there. There was the gift was in there, and she, her energy kind of pulled me out of that kind of, it forced me in to look at it. Yeah. And
they're such incredible mirrors if we let them be, aren't they?
Aren't they?
Our children.
Yeah. She's an amazing girl. Like she's
a dancer?
Yeah, she does the ballet. She's like probably carrying out a lot of the stuff that comes with the territory. She's really in her own very soft and very graceful way, because at first she didn't appear graceful. I'm going, I call this girl Grace, and she's not Grace.
She's whacking you over the head with a bat.
But the Grace came, and she's very much that way, and she's working really hard right now as we speak with the Australian Ballet, putting on endless shows of Swan Lake through to Melbourne at the moment, going into Sydney Opera House at the end of the month of November and into December. So we'll get to see her after. Wow. I can't wait till she comes out the other side of it, because I know that she's working so hard.
The amount of discipline that goes into maintaining your body. Yeah.
She knows so much already. Her knowledge about how to heal, how to work with herself, and how she moves in the world, it blows me out.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think about it a lot at this moment because it's a tricky time. She's got to work hard.
Please stay tuned while we take a quick break to acknowledge the folks who help make our podcast possible.
If the first 50 years were an experiment,
to prove that a business could be
responsible
and successful,
turns out it's not just possible,
it's profitable.
So what's next?
What's next is simple. It's human-powered, and it's finding the joy in doing difficult things.
What's next is turning capitalism on its head
and putting all our money where our mouth is.
What's next is unstoppable.
Thanks to Patagonia for their continued support this season and for prioritizing purpose over profit to protect our wondrous planet, our only home. Sanuk has been advocating for a more playful and inclusive surfing culture for more than 2 decades while crafting some of the comfiest footwear around. Thanks for your support, Sanuk, and for encouraging water people around the globe to protect their happy places. Learn more about Sanuk's partnership with the Surfrider Foundation at sanuk.com.
I'm super grateful that you have the courage to share honestly your stories, Tommy, and that in the way that you were, for me, really helpful by being yourself when I was a grom, and just seeing the nature of how you were navigating the surfing world then was really helpful for me. I feel like people listening to this now would also feel that there is a lot to glean from your experiences and to feel that they're not alone and that their struggles or their real challenges with being in the world and coping, it feels good to know you're not alone. So thanks for sharing that.
My pleasure.
It's really useful, and I really love that we can have our conversations, Lauren, with people and have that in mind about being useful in the world and having a skill sharing kind of feeling to these conversations is really wonderful. And so that brings me to something that's been on my mind the last few days that was just reiterated by Simon Jones, who shapes Morning of the Earth surfboards here in the area. Lovely Simon. Yeah. And I told him we were going to sit down and have a chat with you. And I was like, what would you ask Tommy? He's like, ask him about his shoulders and injuries and how he deals with that. Because Simon's, shaper of many years. He's got the shaper's shoulder that they all get. And his wings are pretty clipped at the moment and all of that. And I started to think about the list of injuries that you have gone through, and that just yesterday when we spoke, you said that you'd literally surfed your ass off because you've been surfing so much and you tore whatever it is that you tear in your bum to surf your ass off. And I just thought, off the top of your head, can you rattle off, like, not the scenarios, but just what injuries you have gone through, and then we can dive into a bit of how you cope with that.
Yeah, I went through a lot of injury in my teens, just the way my approach was. And I destroyed my knee when I was 16, surfing a big wave. We used to go and surf this wave we called it Pissing Point, mate, Pissing Point. And we used to convoy from Newport, which was getting too much swell, and we go around a place called Umina Point.
Yeah.
Umina Point right-handed, it's a ledgy thing, and we thought that we'd discovered it. So there was we'd just be on the convoy having egg fights on the freeway and all that sort of stuff. Can't do that stuff now. Anyway, we pull up this one day and it's ledging and it's crazy, and I had this little sort of root curl short arm vest with no zip on it and a pair of tight quickie boardies.
Yep.
And then paddled out, and we used to just charge it. Just to send it, just go, because you got that that testosterone group of boys just going, who's going to go deeper and harder? So, and I was like, I'm going to go on. Yeah, I felt it that day. Anyway, I got this one wave, I was getting a bit low tide, and I dropped into it, and I went into the backside, and I looked, and it went triple suck and just draining off this really shallow reef. And it was like, there was not a barrel, it wasn't even a wave. I was going, well, I can't pull in, so I'm going to have to straighten out. So I went to straighten out, and I hit that flat sucky bit that comes off the shelf, and it was quite a broad shelf, and I sort of stopped on it, and the whole thing just landed on me, and my knee just popped out and tore my wetsuit off and all that sort of stuff. Ended up in the middle of the rocks, and I my knee was just flopping around. I going, oh my God. So I ended up tearing everything up on the knee. And so that was my first real serious injury that lasted with me all my life. And to the point where now I've got a replacement knee, thankfully, for such great surgery that I don't have that horrible feeling of arthritis that comes along with early injury to the knee like that. But I didn't get surgery for like 4 years, and I basically surfed my first few winters in Hawaii with no cruciate ligament and very, very loose medial ligament. And when that happens, it just everything inside the knee gets churned up, and it was falling out of place, and I just put it back in, and I'd just go. I was getting all kinds of alternative treatment, getting back when, what are you getting, Neil? What's this acupuncture stuff? What are you doing? Like I was going everywhere to do anything.
Yeah.
But every surgeon would just look at me. Oh, I remember this first one I saw, he had a bow tie and he looked at me across the desk this big, and he didn't even inspect the knee, just looked at me because of the long-haired surfy guy. I think now I'll look back at it and I go, he just wrote me off and just gave me a script and got the crutches measured for me. He said, just keep it wrapped, Sonny, and you'll be okay in 6 weeks. Well, I didn't have any cruciate ligaments. I just thought, only rugby players hurt their knees.
Yeah.
That's and once I realised that, I didn't really trust the bow tie since. But but that was one injury. I had a board in the stomach of another friend. It ruptured my stomach. I had to go into for surgery, and I was 18, and that one was my friend's board literally hit me in the stomach, nose first, and back then they were kind of heavily glassed single fins, and we'd had a big surf drought, and I'd just been on 6 weeks trip to Japan competing, and I got home and gone, there's waves, and I had a bunch of lunch, going out for a real long surf session, and I was out there for a little while and got a board in the stomach, and it pushed my stomach against the spine and tore it, and then boom.
Wow.
I ended up somehow kind of surfing a wave in, going, I'm feeling really weird. But I feel winded still, and I feel weird. I was feeling weird. Maybe I'll be okay if I sit in the car for a bit in the car park, and I'll just sit there in my wetsuit and I'll be okay in a little bit. I'll go back out. And took my wetsuit off, sat in the car with my clothes on, started getting burning sensations in the abdomen, and ended up going home, lying down my bed. There's this fire coming out of my belly. Couldn't get in this position that it was comfortable. I'm going, oh my God, my brother and my good friend, best friend who actually happened with, he's a little bit like Ross Clark Jones, a really good friend but dangerous, right? So, and so I'm like, they come in and they just go, oh my God, because I'm like looking white and weird and I'm sweating and carrying on. They just grab me and take me to the hospital as fast as they can. And so lucky that, the interns didn't know what to do with me and they couldn't give me any painkillers. I'm going, and they gave me these x-rays, and I'm like standing there with this gown on, and I'm like sweating. I've never seen anything like it. I'm going, what the hell is happening? Because I had to stand up and do this tummy x-ray. And I'm sweating and going, what the hell is going on? And though luckily it was a Saturday afternoon, it was around about sort of 3 p.m. and it was kind of wintertime, and the Royal Gastric Surgeon, Dr. Greenwell, was on holiday in Bayview, and he was on call, for surgery. So he got called up, and the next minute by then I've got some pethidine in me, and I'm looking at, and he turns up and he looks straight. I'll never forget. And he looks at the X-rays, goes, surgery, 5 minutes, boom.
Wow.
The next minute I'm in surgery, and they do that thing where they take all your stomach and everything,
my goodness,
everything outside the body, and search through it, find it, sew it up, put it all back in, boom, like that.
How did you even ever surf again?
Yeah.
Already we're to 18. And I'm
18.
Who keeps surfing
moly.
after that?
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's just a couple. It goes on a bit, but there's a litany of injury and sort of supposed setbacks. But the knee taught me how to work out. The knee was a very big teacher for me throughout my life. It was a huge teacher. Makes me emotional a bit because it sort of showed me how to work with adversity. and sort of move with it and actually sort of sit back, which is a hard thing for me. But as you can see, injury needed to happen.
Makes me think of the great line that smooth seas never made a skillful sailor.
Ah, yes.
You know, and we think about those times where all of us, especially those of us who love that vibrant edge in surfing of risk and reward and deep tube riding, bigger waves, all of that, we inevitably get injured and we inevitably are laying down staring at the trees above us or the roof above us and reflecting a lot.
Yeah.
And that's such fertile ground for growth. And I know I heard it in Simon's voice today when he wanted to know how you deal with injury and how you've done that, because we all know you've had plenty of adventures and plenty of injuries in Hawaii and Indo and Australia, just all over. And so what have you learned then when you think of this and how to deal with that kind of challenge?
And what are the strategies for getting you through?
Listening to the body. You know, I still tend to drift off course today. It's always a constant sort of waking back up to what's the body's saying. Because I know you've read that book, The Body Keeps the Score, but it's like it's the goal because it's actually already telling us what to do. So getting a language around the body too, you know, for you know, getting some, you know, my beautiful partner Mary, current partner, she actually got me to change my language around my knee prior to total knee replacement, because the way I kind of discarded my knee as something that's not part of me, and I had a whole lot of inflammation in it, and I was like, she goes, "You're speaking to your knee in a really bad way, Tom. You have to change that." And I'll go up, you know. I go off and do my things. She goes, "See, you know."
Yeah.
So she actually helped me sort of change. Again, that was just another like of many, many, many times where I've had to kind of learn to listen, learn to change my language.
What did it sound like? Oh, that's my bad knee. That's my shit.
Yeah, it sounded like this. Oh, it's not even a knee. You say that to your knee, it's not even a knee. Well, it's not going to be a knee. It's simply that's it. And it's very, very straightforward and direct. It's actually direct feedback. So there's not even a little gap. It's not going to give you any gaps. But once I started shifting the way I kind of viewed and the language around it, inflammation started to go down. Actually, I started eating better around it. I started taking.
What did that mean for you? What did better mean?
Just cleaner food, you know, cleaning the diet up further. Like it always sort of take measures around that and that actually give your own particular, because everyone's quite different, but getting closer to that which helps you feel better. Getting those subtle feelings, not the kind of big bold ones, the subtle ones that kind of the real messages are lying in. And actually, just bringing more love to the party in the body, and letting it sing a bit better to tune. I think Simon with his shoulders, he's been sort of doing what I do, sort of go into the kind of ignorant mode, because he loves shaping and designing. He's so passionate, but unless he starts to sort of change a little bit the way he's doing, just subtly changing or looking and viewing the way he does things, so he can actually build longevity into him, that he can actually still still engage and still be involved with what he's doing at the level that actually brings the froth, which he loves, right? I can tell. I can tell from here. Just what he does is extraordinary.
Tom, I've heard you speak about how sometimes our successes end up being our greatest failures, and our failures end up, if we take the time to look at them, showing us our greatest successes. Can you tell me about a moment like that, when a failure showed you who you are in some way?
Well, that addiction was a very powerful message and a journey. Like, they talk about, the hero's journey, and kind of you go kind of always sort of 360 on things, and what seems like the worst scenario sort of informs the greater you. So that higher self can really sort of start to sort of flourish. We need those times groveling around in the dark, and they become our greatest teachers, and the success, it's sort of it becomes blinding, the blinding success. And it's always funny because success is great, like in all things. It's nice to succeed at things, even if it's just sort of making a nice dinner or just, like you guys built, gardening and building a successful permaculture or whatever you're doing and the bees and all that sort of stuff. It's nice to see the bees successful, But, we're just sending it to get some sort of like reach some pinnacle like I went for. And then you realise you come off the back of it and then you've got to go for another one. And that's actually a part of it. You need to have the bottom to kind of come back, actually sort of take another view and then maybe go for another journey. I don't know what that might be, but there's something to really offer and purpose in life, sort of really offer and purpose. And so, like you mentioned a moment ago about, that someone may get something out of our conversation today and the sharing of a life, thoroughly lived. I think that someone's going through something right now. We're all going through something. And so it's, and I think that coming, and it's sort of happening in other little various ways too, but it's definitely, I don't know what's, like I said before, I don't know what's coming in the next 2 minutes, but I'm sure something's going to come along.
Yeah.
And to be, to have those experiences, which is experience always counts, doesn't it? It's like I can sort of tell people to believe this or that, or, people always trying to, dogma's a big one, isn't it? Like, and believe this. But it's our experience that counts all the way.
Sobriety is a choice, a day-to-day, a moment-to-moment choice. What keeps you choosing it?
I like the relationship, the relationship with myself, growth, relationships with others. It's sort of, I can be here present with you, having these conversations. There's an opportunity to grow in it. And, I'm having dinner with my oldest daughter tonight. She's going through a whole bunch of change and, I can be there for her now. I can actually be there. I can listen now. I could never listen while I was not in sobriety. I've got a better chance of listening. I wouldn't say I'm not perfect, but I've got a better chance of hearing her and being a part of her life and her partners. And I can't imagine, like it was a while back now since I stopped using something to kind of change the way I feel on a daily basis. It's like coming up for 17 years. So
wow,
it's a bit of a stint. And like I said, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people I know that made it to 35 years and dropped off and thought it was a good idea to go and have another journey. And and it's pretty, you just never know when you're going to come back because you think, oh God, I think I'm okay now. I think I'm okay. Yeah, the great kind of. But I think, the relationships with myself and others is big and it's valuable, so valuable. Sharing love, like allowing that to prevail even against all odds is great. If it was 17 years the other way, it would have been pretty tricky if I'd be still here. Yeah.
That, Tommy, makes me think of the line in some old surf film where Nat Young says it about hash when they went to Morocco, that they saw an inscription on some wall there that a little bit of keef, whatever the word that was they used, a little bit of hash essentially will keep you warm, but a lot will burn you. And I remember Dick Van telling me similar things as a kid on the Goldie, watching people that burnt out heavily on the Goldie in their surfing scene, and Dirk emphasising sort of the middle path a lot, and of healthy mind, healthy body, healthy spirit. And he incorporated a real reverence for Hawaiian culture. And so he was, when I was a teenager and had a pretty wild dad and a bit of crazy stuff happening at that time where Dirk stepped in as a real mentor, he was really trying to get me to go to Hawaii, not in winter, in summer, and the spaces between all the waves and be with people there and get a feel for the depth of culture and the depth of water-person relationships. And so that was for the Molokai paddle race. Yeah. And so I did the Molokai with a friend I paddled with when I was a grommet.
I remember that.
I think it was 2000. We ended up winning the stock division.
Yeah.
team stock division, and it was great. The race was great and everything, but it was sitting around having barbecue, sitting in the back of the ute in the truck, driving all the way back to the North Shore.
Yeah.
It was the paddles from Turtle Bay back to Three Tables with local crew. And it was also the acknowledgement that those people there saw with me being a young upstart grommet who was in Billabong's ads and all that sort of stuff, making an effort to take an interest in what they were doing and the depth of culture there and a thirst for learning. And I know you've done the Molokai and, of course, you're invitee to the Eddy and have had so much time in Hawaiian waters and with Hawaiian people. And I feel like we have this amazing gift of surfing in our lives, and it does flow through that main stream of Hawaiian, Polynesian culture. And I just wondered if you could speak to that at all and how that's played a part in your life, where surfing's been a big part of your life, and specifically that Hawaiian link and anything in there that really rings for you.
Well, there's guaranteed that's part of my spiritual home there, like on the North Shore, going there since I was 16 and went every winter and just kind of, went through all the things that I needed to go through, like to kind of reach where I reached there, and in that feeling of challenging myself. Like I never rode the biggest waves, but I really put myself in a lot of crazy situations in Hawaii, and kind of somehow saw my way through it, and always had. That's just on that level, but for some reason, I always had this sort of link to the Hawaiians I got, because I came in just when it was all haywire. It was all like quite violent. 1978 in the this little freckly guy like turns up, little Howley kid. It was like feeling like I was like definitely like get out of here, Howley, like that sort of thing. Get out of the break, get out, and so it was a pretty tricky environment. I stuck close to Simon Anderson, who had a lot of respect with the local crew, because he was quiet and he just did his thing and he shaped really good boards. So they were kind of like lights. And
a good sense of humour.
And he had that sort of like, he had that big guy kind of like thing that didn't show anything, because you just want to show who you were, like it. And some people, they look at you there at that point and think, what are you looking at? And like it was kind of violent. And it didn't look like anyone was having much fun in the water. Everyone was like stink-eye and kind of, it wasn't that nice. But that was always the crew that had sort of made Hawaii their home, and that weren't actually Hawaiian, and the local crew. And so, but funnily enough, I ended up making good friends with Louis Pereira, who he used to come and stay at our house in Newport and have to deal with us in Newport. And so he got a dose of us, and then I'd go back and hang out with him, and he'd hang out with Michael Ho and Dane Kiloa, and I ended up hanging out with those guys more, and they were so cool to me and kind of welcomed me in, and it kind of went from there. Like, and I did have a confrontation for no apparent reason in 1979, surfing the lefts at V-Land.
Oh, wow.
Some local guy come over and started swinging at me and stuff, and I got my board. It was pretty crazy. He was just super frustrated, and then Louis was out there, and Louis, anyway, kind of sorted it out, and then the guy was my best buddy, that sort of thing goes on. But apart from that, everything's the warmth that I've felt with Hawaii, the people in Hawaii, the kind of welcoming feeling, and then I'd go there and I'd stay there. I'd spend months there at a time. And they go, because you spend like good deal of time like you, and then you go, and then we go and start doing all that stuff like the Molokais. And like you just said, it was they saw me kind of giving recognition to their home as home, not something to come and sort of take from, and so, and join in with what was going on. And I saw the Eddy, the initiative with the Eddy, event as a recognition of a great Hawaiian lifeguard who'd passed away trying to save people. Was a very powerful symbol. of bringing people together. And I thought, wow, this is such a great, and it was my sponsor Quicksilver, so it was sort of easy fit for me. But just that ceremony alone each year, turning up to that and just being a part of that ceremony and the relationships with some of the surfers, and it was just amazing. It was, it was so rich. Some of the guys that would surf Waimea Bay, and once they got them on land and got talking, it was, it was hilarious. Roger Erickson and all that crew, and James Jones, and just the characters, you know, and you know, Al Chapman, and just the originals were pretty amazing just to be around all that crew, you know, Mike Fu and.
I feel this is a great opportunity for us to continue it on, but I really do feel how important it is for any healthy culture to essentially sit around the fire and listen to stories from those who have experienced place, experienced country and people before us. And I know for us that was one of the original reasons for us wanting to record conversations like this, because we've had the good fortune to travel and sit with people like yourself and just hear the best stories that are wildly entertaining but also deeply useful, you know, and that we're fit and we're wild, healthy people. And that's great for us, but it doesn't mean much if we're not putting that to use in the world, you know, like it doesn't mean much if it's just for our own self-satisfaction. And so I really love that about some of those characters in previous generations, just people above us in the surfing timeline. And, yeah, it's just a real privilege for us to be able to sit down and converse this way, and hope that there's a lot of people who listen that are in their 20s, 30s, younger, who would feel that they're growing into a culture that has some depth, that is an actual culture. And it's a global earthling culture, and we have so many relational ties in all directions.
Crosses cultural boundaries. Like like you go to Japan, you go to South America. Now you go to places like Norway.
Yeah.
And it's up there, and there's actually surfing history up there. And think about that. It's and they're just the places where we can actually be with people, can't speak the language, but surfing crosses it. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's one of the better aspects of what surfing can be, and one of those things that we were talking about earlier, where it's one of those parts that we could miss if we have the blinkers on and we're just going to our local every day to get that one wave that you deserve because you're here the longest or whatever. These are the things that are wonderful about surfing, and that seems so necessary at this point in a splintering, divided, sort of tech-obsessed, square-brained world that's very dominant right now. The idea of walking away from that and to that space between ocean and earth and being in that realm with other humans and feeling a connectivity to country but to each other is wonderful as a way of being in the world, as opposed to that very divisive worldview or divisive kind of inheritance we can get, you know, in the city, on the streets, on our phones, and the computers. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but I like that idea of it.
Nail on the head, that's for sure.
Do you think about being useful as you're aging, as we're all aging? You know, we're the pinnacle of this surfing world and known as such a great power surfer. And you've spoken about how much confidence you've found in being physically strong, being powerful. How are you rippling that outward now and making it useful?
Well, at the moment, because I surfed my butt off, I'm feeling pretty kind of, it's definitely put me back in my seat. So I'm taking stock of that, and I had a lot of resistance to that, and that created a lot of suffering, really. So I've sort of just come out of the back of that because I thought I'd be ready to sort of exert myself, but I'm not. So that's just on the surface, but it sort of runs down to the depth too. And but I see there's another chance to actually, kind of actually feel like I'm going back to square one a little bit. with my whole interaction with the ocean. I went mat riding before coming here, and mat riding's, like Dave knows, pretty humbling. It's like,
can't help but laugh at yourself.
Yeah. Just don't take this one too seriously. It's like, and literally, it's like a rugby match, like playing the All Blacks on a 2-foot wave. Like if it's coming at you, and you got to hold onto your mat, and actually being just the act of doing it, it's you can't force yourself on to the craft. It has to be light, and it has to be kind of with finesse. A lot of finesse, but it's all about this kind of like movement, this buoyant thing that's pushing you around, and your body's getting shoved in these weird angles, and it's quite a workout. It's like, and I kind of, and that's where I'm at the moment. So I'm sort of being put back into that seat.
Yeah.
And where I'm kind of back into, can I actually surf again? I try to ride a wave.
Yeah.
I coach kids surfing at home. They actually call it Tom's Groms. I didn't call it Tom's, but they call it Tom's Groms.
That's great.
And the kids are a bunch of, they're all boys. There's a couple of daughters that are going to come through. I'm really looking forward for them to come through. And it's just grown organically. It sort of started happening in July of 2020 when it was all lockdown. They couldn't do any sports. And one of the parents just reached out, do you give surf lessons? I go, I'm not, but I'll give it a go, Let's give it a go. So, and so it's kind of grew from there. So I stood up with them. They actually had a funny one. They blame me for getting the surgery done for the flat spell. The flat spell. We had a real bit of a shocker this year.
Yeah.
Just right when I had my surgery, they go, "You're the reason you got to get surfing again." There's going to be waves that are going to come back when you. It's just that superstitious stuff, but it's pretty funny. They come up with that. But I stood up for the first time last week, 3 months, and I'm just sort of, sheepish. I'm going straight again.
Is that your longest?
2-foot wave.
Is that your longest stretch out of the water?
No, I've had lots of time. I had knee replacement.
Yeah. How long is that?
2017. That was about 5 months I had out.
Yeah.
And then I was back for about 2 months, and then I had to get a full reconstruction done on my shoulder from a snowboard. I went out on the snowboard. I always go snowboard. Well, I love when my oldest daughter did a lot of ballet, she'd go off and do all this stuff with the ballet, and I grabbed my second daughter and she'd go off with the mum do the ballet, and I grabbed my second daughter and we'd go snowboarding or go and hit the snow. Cool. And so she goes, Dad, you can go snowboarding with your new knee. I go, yeah, I know, the snow's pumping, let's go. So we went down together, and I lasted 2 days. I ended up going down my shoulder, tore my shoulder.
Yeah.
And that was, you tear your shoulder. It just revealed a crap shoulder. So I had to get that reconstructed, and that was pretty much 9 months out. So I went sort of a period there, 17, 18. And it was an interesting time being out of the water that time. And it was actually a good length, so I kind of fully surrendered in that period. The 3-month thing, it's
doable. You can
kind of. I felt like I can, and then I'm like, am I back? So standing up on a 2-foot wave last week about half a dozen times and just going straight.
And Tommy, you were mentioning meditation being a big part of your life right now and also sharing that with people. Would you like to speak to that at all?
Yeah. So for me, when I came into recovery, I found there's a bunch of different sort of tools they kind of suggest in the programs of recovery. The 12-step program gives us, I call it a program, but it's really a sort of a way of sort of bringing ourselves to ourselves and others and so on, and into the fellowship of sort of recovery kind of helps us sort of move into greater growth. And but one of the suggestions in it, the tool, was meditation, and I thought my head was so crazy at the time. I thought, maybe I can stop this by doing meditation. How wrong I was, but it sort of put me in the spot where I'll never forget one of the first guy, the teacher. He wasn't a teacher as such. He was just helping me, but it was a teacher. He wasn't sitting me down and doing the process with me or anything. He was just going, look, Tom, this is going to happen if you do this. And one of the things I'll never forget, he said, you know how, he goes, Tom, you know how you wake up in the morning, you start thinking, and you just all of a sudden you're doing this thing you thought about and you're doing it and you don't realize there's no gap between it. You're just doing it. You think and you do it. And so the gap between the thought and action is nil. And so you could be doing anything at any time. And it's very hard to kind of, know what you're going to be doing. You could be doing anything, right? And so he said, if you keep doing this, Tom, and you keep this regularly, do this daily, you'll start to create the gap between the first thought and your action. And that's where we start to transform. We start to renew ourselves in that gap. And I've gone, okay, now I get it. So this is the practice. You sit down and you put yourself aside. And at that time it was put yourself aside and let God in. And so I kind of was getting a concept of high power, and I was trying to figure all that sort of stuff out because that's what was needed for me to kind of get out of myself, because it's such a self-centered journey, the addiction journey. It's highly self-centered. But that gap started appearing, and then things started to change. And now it was the last thing I thought was going to actually help me, really, other than stop me thinking. From the get-go, that was the inquiry. I thought, well, I better start. Is that going to help me stop thinking? So, and the mind was super busy. I was coming off some very strong stimulants. So, and that takes a while for the nervous system to come to. And it's not an easy task to sort of sit with all those uncomfortable feelings, which we need to do. And meditation itself, guided by someone who actually is experienced, gets the ball rolling a bit quicker for people. And that's what I've experienced. So it's been my constant companion, the practice, and I was just stuck to it. I said, if there's something I can do, I'm going to give myself to this and my recovery being number one before everything I do, and this is what I'm going to start each day with. So I just gave myself completely to the practice, which was a simple kind of mindfulness practice at first, which is the Tibetan breath-based practice, and then the kind of enrichment sort of started to come as a result. Maybe I think it was probably 3 or 4 months in that I really started to feel that gap started to appear, where I wouldn't react. I'd actually respond, and I could actually sit back and see I didn't need to get involved in this thing, that was the drama unfolding before me, which before I'd be in there trying to stop it or change it and now I could sit back and take a broader view. So I thought, wow, you mean sitting down, closing your eyes and doing what appears to be nothing actually can help us at such a deep level. And so this practice, I started sort of, going for an enrichment in that area. And over time, when I've asked for guidance through prayer, which I do use prayer, which is just comes through me now. It sounds like a bunch of woo-woo, but it's an intention coming from the heart. And if it's really genuine, when you genuinely ask for guidance in an area, you just watch what happens. Don't ask for specific, I want this, I want a new car, I want this. Well, actually be careful what you wish for in life. But I think this practice has shown me consistently that it's been enriching and connecting me at the level I need to be able to connect with you. And so I started, I was the last thing I'd think I'd be doing is teaching meditation. The last thing. I wouldn't. And in fact, it's taken me a while to get to it and actually allow myself to move into the space. But I've been teaching since 2019.
Such a beautiful offering. I love that about your Instagram account, how you bring in probably unsuspecting surfers into that sort of reflective space.
Yeah.
It's a great offering.
And I love using that platform for something it's not. It's like, I love it. Every time there's a bit of a rebel in me, there's a bit of that sort of cheeky kind of,
Yeah.
that is sort of like flipping Instagram on its head to go, okay, close your eyes. You're on Instagram. Close your eyes. And sort of giving yourself a chance to kind of be that, which is breaking the symmetry of that. And which is, that's why I kept coming back to it and giving it. And then again, I don't know, that's just the last thing I think I'd be doing and having these interactions with people on that level.
Yeah. Can you tell us about the Art of Longevity workshop that you did? I don't know why, but that title just really grabbed me. I was like, I'm gonna ask Tom about that.
Yeah,
Sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, I've been working with. It's actually a bit of a brainchild of Rodrigo Perez from Holistic Pro Health. Well, I came in and he kind of invited me in to be involved as the meditation teacher and the sort of surf guide within that idea of having retreats. We started off with retreats and then we added the workshop. And the workshop's a 3-hour offering. The retreats, well, we do a retreat with Christians in Sumba, which is a 10-day retreat, which is full on. It's fantastic. It's a full immersion in, what the place is like. It's pretty
great place for it.
It's epic.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it, being introduced to that. It's it's a beautiful, beautiful experience. And then giving the practices in these kind of offerings and in the environment where I've got Rod, who has a lot of deep. He comes from a place where I wouldn't have thought to actually be involved in, like BJJ and all that sort of stuff. It's an expression physical where you have to actually, and he's learned a lot around actually offering help and healing to both surfers and martial arts practitioners and working on healing body movement work, which is kind of like crawling around a lot of that sort of stuff and experimenting with the body and flow. And so he comes in from his angle and I come in from my angle from the meditation and breathwork side. And that's what we offer in sort of, we get people sort of opening up into that sort of world. Quite often people are long-term practitioners in certain areas and they just need a little sort of boost up and others are coming in fresh. And I love the involvement in them. It's really lovely. I've actually done a retreat with my partner too, which is separate. We did one last year, Mary and I, and I brought my daughter in because she does human design. She does naturopathy. And so she gives readings and naturopathy, and she's also, her and a partner they teach Zouk. I don't know whether you know what Zouk partner dancing is. No. It's a Brazilian style of partner dancing. It's quite a big culture. You wouldn't even know what's going on. But it's a partnered style of dancing. It's got kind of a little bit salsa, a little bit tango-y, but they teach it. And I had them kind of do surprise sort of classes at the retreat, which
awesome.
Just breaks the rigidity of everything. And kind of goes really well with mindfulness meditation because the way they teach it, they get you doing all sorts of stuff around movement and spatial feeling, movement, rhythm and space, and then joining together. So we do. So we have that. And I hope to do another one like that. That's really cool. But the Art of Longevity is a great one. Gives a bunch of different information too, quite practical application that you can put into your life.
That's great. That's fantastic. I really look forward to seeing when you bring the Zouk salsa tango partner dancing to a wave and do the share contest idea of Kelly's with that dance.
That's it.
On a wave, then sign us up.
So, well, we got to get in.
That'd be great.
And you got to wear the dress.
Oh yeah,
you got to wear the dress and then dressed up.
It's such a pleasure, Tom. I know the clock's here saying Caseman's probably going to grab you in a sec. If he's not already here. But I haven't heard the dogs bark. But thank you. I know we could keep prodding you for more and more stories and more pearls of wisdom. Yeah, it's been a real honour and a privilege.
Yeah, David.
Thanks,
Lauren, it's really lovely being here with you guys and your beautiful zone. Good vibes.
Yeah.
Any last words that you want people to consider as they're maybe driving or doing the laundry and the podcast is about to come to an end? Any parting words?
You mentioned reflection, the quality of reflective thought. I just offer at this time, I think, to give yourself a chance to create that space for you. Just sitting back, allowing yourself a broader view about what's going on for you. Give yourself that opportunity and that gift.
Thanks so much for listening with us today. If you like what you heard, please consider sharing an episode with a friend. Our editor this season is the multi-talented Ben Alexander. The podcast soundtrack was composed by Shannon Soul Carroll, with additional tunes by Dave and Ben. We'll be continuing today's conversation on Instagram, where we're at Water People Podcasts, and you can subscribe to our very infrequent newsletter to get book recommendations, questions we're pondering, behind-the-scenes glimpses into recording the podcast, and more via our website, waterpeoplepodcasts.com.